Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dulcimerica. My name is Bing Futch. Thank you very much for joining me. So last week's episode on arranging Shenandoah went over really good. And so, based on response, I decided to do another episode where I figure out a tune that I don't know how to play on the mountain dulcimer. Last week was a little bit of a cheat because I didn't play it in DAD, but I did have a DAA arrangement. But I still had to figure out all new chord shapes and do the whole thing like that. So not too much of a cheat. This one, however, I've never even tried to play on the mountain dulcimer, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me just set this up first of all. Last week's song was Shenandoah, based on the version by the Statler Brothers off of their album Statler Brothers Sing the Big Hits, 1967. This song was also released the same year by Tommy James and the Shondells. I'm sure you probably know what song I'm talking about just based on the time frame and the band. However, this is not the version that I'm going to do. This is the version that happened 20 years later that was on the debut album by Tiffany. That's right, Tiffany. And yes, I've had this cassette since 1987. I'm a little bit older than Tiffany, and in my just post-high school years, I was in love with this woman. Oh, she was a girl then, I was a boy then, but nonetheless, very much had, some people like Debbie Gibson. I was a Tiffany fan. And sometime after her version of I Think We're Alone Now came out, she was on tour. She had graduated from shopping malls to amphitheaters, and I was a tour guide in training in 1989, 2 years after the album came out, at Universal Studios Hollywood. We had just finished training for the day, and a buddy of mine, Ian from Australia, we were both walking from the Universal back lot, getting ready to take the shuttle back to the top and go home. We hear this music playing inside one of the sound stages, and I say to myself, gosh, that sounds like Tiffany. Wait a second, she's doing a concert tonight at the Universal Amphitheater. They're rehearsing. And Ian, being the bad boy that he was, said, "Hey, let's go inside." I'm like, we can't do that, we're gonna get busted. Nonetheless, we creep inside, and we're watching Tiffany and her band rehearse for the show. It was fabulous. And everybody was just kind of casual. She had her hair tied back and wearing a big old baggy sweatshirt. And so we just kind of stood in the back and didn't talk to anybody and looked like we were supposed to be there. Well, during the break, Tiffany walks right over to us and she's like, "Hey, fellas." And she's like drying her hair. And I happen to know that she went to school in Norwalk High School for a brief time. And I went to Cerritos High School. And we were crosstown rivals. So we just kind of talked about that. And I went, "You went to Norwalk, huh?" She went, "Yeah." And I went to Cerritos. She went, "Ew, Cheerios." She was the most down-to-earth, laid-back, cool person, and I'm glad we had that meeting, you know. So many years later, she's, and we're talking like, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, she's back on tour. She's still making music, even today, and she comes to Epcot. So who was the fanboy that hung out after the show at the America Gardens Theater just to get a picture? This fanboy right here. So love you, Tiff. Glad you were still out there kicking ass and making music. Oops, did I just say that on Dulcimerica? I don't think I've ever done that on Dulcimerica. Anyway, today I am going to figure out how to play I Think We're Alone Now, as performed by Tiffany off of her debut album for MCA Records in 1987. So I gave a quick listen, and it turns out the tune is actually in the key of D. So that worked out good. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, of course, that I'm going to do when I'm developing a new arrangement is figure out the melody. And if I've got the melody, chances are I'm going to be able to have the chords. Why is that? Because when we're playing diatonically within the key, we've got 7 different notes of the scale. And those notes can be used to build melodies, of course. But those notes also build the available chords. So if we build a chord off of every single note in the scale, that gives us 7 chords that are native to the key. 3 major chords built off the 1st, 4th, and 5th scale degrees. 3 minor chords built off the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th scale degrees. And a diminished chord that is built off of the 7th scale degree. So listening to this song in my head, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really go outside. Everything seems to be inside that diatonic arena. So, once again, if I've got the melody, more than likely I've got the chords to match. Let's see what we got here. F sharp we're starting off with. Children behave. I knew that was going to go a little higher, so I went up and thought about my intervals and got a little higher up there to B. Okay. Running just as fast as we can. Now here's the one part in my head that I knew wasn't quite diatonic. It sticks out, this part of the song, this next part. And it's because there's a chord that's not part of the scale, or not part of the key, and that's C major. But luckily, I can do C major on a mountain dulcimer, and the melody note is G. So and there's our verse going into the chorus. I'm going to go to the middle string for that A because it's a little bit lower than what I've got on the melody string. It's going to be B, so seems to me like I'm going to need to hang out down here, excuse me, and hit the B. All right. It's rinse, wash, and repeat. Basically, wash, rinse, and repeat in that order. That's all the stuff. The song goes through the verse, goes to chorus, goes to verse, goes to chorus. There's a snappy little solo, synthesizer solo, comes back to a bridge. The bridge would be running just as fast as we can. So we've got the verse. This is the pre-chorus. Chorus. All right. A little songwriter's note for those of you out there who are doing a lot of writing. You notice first time I'm playing through this, I'm just jumping on it. I'm playing it. And it's the same thing when you're singing a new tune for the first time that you like a lot. It really helps to have the notes, the melody notes, not be terribly complicated and convoluted. It helps to have the notes not travel a far distance or a far interval. When those notes are nice and close together like that, or when certain notes are repeated over and over again, it's easier to sing, and it's easier to remember and figure out which direction your fingers are going to go, whether it's going to be up a fret, or down a fret, or up 2 frets. These notes are very, very close together. There's not a whole lot of big jumps in spectrum going back and forth. Those are fun songs to sing, of course, but that's why the national anthem is so hard to sing, because there's a lot of really big intervals in between some of those melody notes. Here, a lot of them are right bumped up next to each other, and so that's why I was able to kind of jump on very quickly and play it with a few missteps here and there, judging for what string I'm on and how far up I need to go, pitch-wise, and how far down I go. need to go pitch-wise. So now that we figured that out, let's go ahead and pair the melody together with the chords. So as again, we are in D major. I'm in DAD tuning. So we're going to start off. So we started with a F sharp at the 2nd fret. Walked up G and then got here to A. So that first chord is D, D major, D, F sharp, and A. We talked last week about the lily pad chords or chord tones. When you got a melody that's hanging out, sustaining for about a beat and a half, 2 beats, 2.5 beats, 3 beats, that's a nice sustained note. It's always a good idea to make sure that that melody note is a chord tone or a lily pad note. It's one of those notes that are actually in the supporting chord so that it's consonant, that it lives there, it wants to be there, it's happy to be there. If you sustain on a note that's not part of the chord, you are in effect extending that chord, you're changing the flavor of that chord, and that note is going to be a little bit dissonant. It's going to create some tension. So if we're remaining with a nice sustaining note over a supporting chord, typically, you don't want to have any tension. That's not always the case. Sometimes you do want there to be tension going on there. Now, here's the other thing. A is a chord tone for D major. But knowing what I know about this song, it goes from a major chord to open, and it goes to a minor chord. So what minor chord am I looking at that's going to anchor right there together with A? The answer is F sharp minor. So we're going from the 1 chord, D, to the 3 chord, the minor 3 chord, and that is going to be F sharp minor. Next melody. So let me see now. I'm thinking about how the song goes. Follow the bass line in your head and listen to the lowest pitched note that you could possibly hear. 9 times out of 10, thereabouts, that's going to be the root, and that's going to help you find out what the next chord is. Bum, ta-da, children behave. Bum, bum. Okay, that's B. So I'm thinking it's B minor because that next chord is a minor chord in my recollection. So I'm probably going to come back down to this B and play 2-1-0. Even though I'm not playing a B as the root note, this is going to work out good. I'm playing a B on the middle string. It's going to be lower than our melody. Not right off the bat though, because our melody is D. So let's see how that works, going to the B minor. Works out good. Now I'm bringing that melody in at F sharp, and it's not sounding as good. F sharp is a chord tone for B minor, but it's not sounding right because we need to go to a major, and a major that's going to lead us back to the next line of the verse. So it needs probably to be the 5, right? The 5 chord's going to be A major, but we want to have that F sharp. That F sharp is the melody at that point. Let's try doing a 1-0-2 chord, which is going to give us part of the foundation for A. We've got A on the middle string. We've got E, the perfect 5th for A major, on the bass string. But instead of playing C sharp, we're playing F sharp. Normally we'd have a C sharp as our major 3rd, but here we're playing F sharp, and let's see how that works out. Perfect, that's exactly how it goes. All right, now we're going to do that verse again. Now, I'm not visualizing the Tommy James and the Shondells version, but I know Tiffany takes this melody up a bit to B before coming back down to the A here. So let's do the same movement from D to F sharp minor. That's nice. Back down to our B minor. Go Going to our A. All right, running just as fast as we can is going to be, and I know that's a minor chord. I know we're dealing largely diatonically, so I'm going to say that's F sharp minor. Yep, let's do that again. Now remember, we've got this G melody, and we want to put that together with a C major chord. You really recognize the shininess, the special glimmer of a C major when you're playing in D. You hear it in Old Joe Clark, and you hear it in this song. It comes as a big surprise because, you know, C sharp is what we build chords off of, and that's typically the melody note we would use here. But now we've got a G. That's going to be the perfect fifth of a C major chord. So let's see how that works out with our low C major, courtesy of the 1.5 fret here. Let's go. Here we go. That's it. Going open on that melody. Going to hold on to the C until we change chords. Right there is where we're going to change chords, because that F sharp is definitely the melody note, but it does not fit with the C major. So remember that last time we played F sharp, we played a 102 chord to bring it to A. Back to D. 5 loves to go to 1 as a resolution. There it is. There is the verse and the pre-chorus leading in. All right. Now, we're moving into the chorus, and remember I was doing some stuff on the middle string, so that means probably going to be doing just the first position chords here, like, and largely this is going to be a 1-4-5 thing. It's a very, very easy, very, very simple progression and easy to sing melody. So I was doing A on the middle string, I, F sharp, I think we're alone now. Interestingly enough, I was going to say something about the compatibility between some of the notes in the D major chord and also the A major chord to help us make this happen. It's almost paralleling some of the stuff we could do with A major here. So I'm going to do that middle string, and then 101, and then come back to the A. So I went from A up to B, and since we are largely staying 1-4-5, that's got to be a G major chord at that point. B is going to be the major third of a G major chord. So the G310 shape is going to be helpful there. And since I need to bounce back to that B, I can hang on to the G during that and pluck my D open on the melody string. D is the perfect fifth of G major. So let's look at that. How easy is that? Yay! Well, I mean, that's the song in a nutshell right there. We've got the verse and pre-chorus, we got the chorus. So the next step here is to put a little bit of an arrangement behind it and do something with it. So let's see. In my recollection, this thing starts off with just a bass. So we could do like a right hand palm mute. And then get into it. All right, so what I'm doing is selective picking and strumming. When the melody is sustaining, I don't want to strum across all the strings because that's going to chop up the melody. So I'm leaving my choppy rhythm engine running on the bass and on the middle string. So I can go like this. Notice how that melody on the A sustains out and doesn't get chopped up. If I went across all three strings, it would sound like this. And that's just a little too rough and rocky. We want that to sustain nice and long, just like Tiff would have sang it. So let's do that again. Okay, then we get into our... And at that part of the song, if you're a big fan of the Tiff version, you know, the bass goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, which luckily is just right under your fingertips. You can go back and forth like that. And then get into your C major. One strum per melody note is typically going to give you the motion that you need, and then you could put accents and emphasis where you want to keep things moving as you recall it from your memory and from the record. So during this part, I'm not doing as much drive because the melody is moving around a little bit differently. So I like to come back against the bass string and do occasional little pops on the bass string while I'm moving my chord shapes around and the melody. So we'll see how it develops. You know, sometimes I can get a little bit more creative with my bass lines and accompaniment, also playing at other places on the fretboard. But right now I'm feeling like straight 1, 2, like straight 8s, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But I need to be able to flat pick and accent that A on the middle string and make sure it doesn't get lost in what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And then in the Tiffany version, you remember that really wild synthesizer solo in the then there's some kind of wild run. So I'd have to think about that run for a little bit, but let me think. And part of figuring out this stuff, the melodies, the chord changes, is you need to be able to internalize it. You need to be able to hear it. Because if you hear it, then you can hum it, hear it in your head, and find it on the fretboard. Ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum. With the same chords we're using for the verse. Da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Bum, 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 ba-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum. And then running just as fast as we can, we come back in with that. So, important to know what chords are underlying this, so I know what melody notes I'm going to use, because remember, they're all going to be chord tones. So we're starting off with D. So I go. Nope. There we go. So it's going back to the F sharp minor, but it's actually gonna come up from A to B. Going to a B minor next. A, so and then B minor, and that run would be and then to the A, and then we'd go into F sharp minor. So yeah, give me some time to work out the solo, but that's like the first part of it, right? Then some kind of crazy wackiness. Running just as fast as we can. I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. I think we're alone now. The beating of our hearts is the only sound. Fade and repeat. And I don't know how I'd end that. Maybe suddenly like that, or I don't know. Maybe I'd do a pretend fade out. Uh-oh. Look at that. And just fade it out like the record. Oh my gosh, that was fun. So there's another example of arranging on the fly. Listen to the song. I didn't even really have to. I wanted to see what key it was in. I didn't listen to the whole thing. So the keyboard solo, I'm really going off of maybe the last time I heard that done, which was maybe the last time she played at Epcot that I actually saw her. It was about like 5 or 6 years ago. But either listen to the song or you know the song so well, try and get an idea if you think this is like staying in the key. If you've got notes that are a little outside or chords that are borrowed from a different key, then you might have a little bit of an issue doing it with the mountain dulcimer. There are lots of ways of getting around not having all the notes, not having all the chords, but the diatonic tunes are the easiest ones to do. This one is well, it's a mixed mode kind of a tune. That C, having the C melody note, or actually it was a G melody note, but having the C major is something that would come out of the Mixolydian mode. And we also use C sharp as a melody in this. So that's definitely an accidental as opposed to a key change or something like that. And that's manageable on the mountain dulcimer when you've got DAD tuning, and also the 1.5 fret gives you a nice low C major for that. Otherwise you could play it up here or up here. But it's nice to have a lot of that energy and activity down here in first position because you have a nice low rich tone. You have a lot of these root notes that are supporting the melodies that you're playing. And at some point, as I flesh this out, I'll take it up here to the upper octave in the second position and beyond, and have some fun with it there. So you can hear it in your head. You find the melody. Once you find that melody, we're going to be piecing the melody together with chords, adding the other two strings in these various chord shapes. This was actually very, very basic, and I would say probably not as complex chord-wise as Shenandoah was, but this one rhythmically has got other things going on. And whether you play this version or whether you play the Tommy James and the Shondells version, it matters not. It matters exactly how you want to play it. You could turn it into a polka. You could make it go 3/4 time if you want to, and have some fun with the how you execute the arrangement. Know your scale, what the key you're playing in, know the chords that are associated with that. That gives you a nice lead in to when you start playing. You can already visualize what those chord shapes are going to be when you get there. And so once you find the melody, everything else should just kind of fall into place and you start rocking out. Again, I like to teach this sort of stuff because so many times we go looking for tablature on the internet and either you find it and it's totally screwed up and you know that's not the way it goes, or you can't find it. But the best song catalog in the world is in your head and in your heart. And I would love for everybody just to be able to free those songs inside of them and get them playing on the mountain dulcimer. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks as always, and much love to my patrons on Patreon. Check out what's there in the open house section of Patreon. Download all kinds of free stuff, and if you like it, join up for $5 a month and have access to everything I've ever done that's self-published, plus new stuff every single week. That's all I can think of. I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anybody around except for you and me. We'll see you next time.